don't have to, but you'd be a fool not to.
Okay, I mean, generally speaking, you look, so you're going to be looking at a windsock
Yes.
that will let you go into the wind, and what this entails is that when you see the runway coming, you're taught in school that you're going to always have your runway on the left side of you, so you can look out the window and see where your descent's going to be, where you're landing, where you're coming up on. So it's almost like a hook pattern every time that you come in, depending on which way the wind's blowing. And like Mike said, you preferably want to land into the wind, because with his plane, you only have 50 to 100 feet to make the approach, and you have to make a decision when you come in and make your, I'm going to say your left-hand turn, and then your other left-hand turn to make your hook, that your descent and your speed is such that you can land and not
Have to go around. I mean,
or you got to go around. You got to pull up and go around. So this hooking is what all pilots are used to doing, and that's why in the case of if you're trying to create something to make it safe for those pilots, it's not so much an azimuth or a direction as much as it's a circle, because depending on where the wind's blowing from. So for that reason, they need an airspace around them, and I thought that was beneficial for me, because I understood the problems or the issues that you have when you're trying to land, so that you get all these right, that you don't become a statistic. So when I talked to Mike Homier about this, I know that he said that this is very complicated.
It's complicated in as much as these, to my knowledge, are unregulated airports. Although they meet the definition of airport under the Airport Zoning Act, they are unregulated in the sense that they're not licensed, registered, etc. So it becomes a little more complicated than just saying you have to comply with the Act, thus the language. So that the Planning Commission, when it receives an application for an on-site tower, they can take a look at the area, determine whether there are any airports meeting the definition under the Act, and then determine whether or not the siting of that tower or towers interferes with the safe takeoff, landing, and approach of aircraft. And it's not until that time that you really can understand what the issue may or may not be.
So the motion that you got tabled from 6 months ago, where we asked for a mile circle around it, that wouldn't be favorable just to have that in writing?
I think it's premature to determine how it may or may not affect it. A mile may be too much, a mile may not be enough. I don't know the answer to it, because it depends, I suppose, on the type of aircraft involved, the length of the strip. I just don't know. What this language allows the Planning Commission to do is, when and if it receives an application, to review all of those factors and then make a determination about whether a particular siting of a tower would interfere unsafely with that approach, landing, and takeoff.
Does anybody on the commission here have a question or any comment? Yeah, the final leg is always like a hook, right. And you always try to, fly with your landing strip on the left-hand side of the pilot, so that he's looking down and as he's making that approach to swing around. So, and that's why they really need a circle rather than an azimuth or a straight line going into and coming out of the airports. So, with this, this is kind of the down and dirty of that, how does the Planning Commission feel? Or should we vote on each one of these so they're recorded as separate motions as we go through this? Or wait to the end, or?
Why don't we go through some more and see where we're at?
Okay.
There aren't very many changes.
All right, all right.
Let's go on next one.
And we're going
Page
to,
5, next page. This next provision is a provision that I think at the last meeting, the Planning Commission expressed a desire to keep the measurement for sound at the adjacent property line of an unparticipating parcel. Although I could be mistaken in that, I think that was the decision of the PC.
you concur with that?
The last one was proposed was inhabited principal structure from the April 4th version.
Okay, so the April 4th said principal, inhabited principal.
As a proposed change, that's correct. And I thought the discussion at that meeting was to keep it at the property line, to reject, in essence, the proposed change to the April 4th draft.
Correct, okay. And that makes sense because it was written as previously proposed.
Yep.
Which would have been the property.
Correct.
Okay, yes.
So it is, what you see on the screen is the way?
Correct.
Okay.
That's where the vote was.
Okay? All right.
Is that in our, just a minute before we move on that one. Dwight, is that in our minutes here?
Yeah, item number 3. Removing the audible noise was as previously discussed prior to the April 4th temporary revision. Which means it would have been left to the property line.
And we're gonna take out the word inhabited principal structure. I'm not in favor of taking out the word inhabited principal structure.
Well, the last change, I want to make sure that we're clear. The April 4th change was proposed to be inhabited principal structure. The planning commission voted at that time to reject that proposed change and stay with the property line.
I think that was you gave us that idea to put with the property line.
Well, I think there was a vote.
So that's what I'm asking him to look up.
Yeah, I'm checking the, you have the old, you have the proposed April.
See, that's what I'm asking him to look up right now.
Hands up. That's the language that the April version had.
And we voted on that,
That would have been the version in front of you.
that we voted on.
Right. To reject that change and stay with property. At least that's where I read that.
I'm looking for the minutes.
Those are that.
Well, this, if you got it marked there, it says discussion occurred concerning leaving audible noise as was previously proposed. The audible noise, it says nothing about where it's at.
So that was the version in front of you. At that meeting.
Yes, and we voted to leave the noise level the same at that level.
Well,
We never voted to change where it was gonna be measured from. We'll read what you got in a minute.
Yeah, concerning leaving the audible noise as was previously proposed.
True.
Previously proposed prior to that change. That's the way I understood it.
That's not how I understood it.
Well, I'm not here to debate it.
No,
I'm here to just get clarification. If you want it at the adjacent, or the inhabited principal structure, we can change that back. But leaving that meeting, looking at my notes, was under the impression that you had changed it or rejected this change and left it at the property line. So I'm happy to do either. I just need some direction.
Well, no, I had raised an issue about where we're gonna measure it from, whether we measure it from the entire parcel or the person's principal area of residence, not from the siting of their home, so to speak, but say from their living area of their property. And I know you and I debated that as the valuation of the property in giving a person who owns a non-participating parcel, say an entire farm, that if we kept it at the homestead for the noise situation, that you're excluding any future benefit on the land itself.
Well, I think it certainly becomes difficult to measure what the homestead is.
I agree. There's no doubt in my mind. That's why I was thinking, where do we start from that point? I'm trying to exclude, I guess, 2¼ acres of property. I'd like to be able to enjoy the entire 2¼ acres. But if I had a 100-acre farm and I only lived on basically a 2-acre parcel, where I'm going to actually hear the noise from, that can we rightfully exclude the entire farm because of that? That was my concern. Do I want the sound level taken at the siting of my house? No, I want it taken at the area that I reside on. But there again, my residential lot line is a lot smaller than what somebody would be, say that they own a 100-acre farm and they lived over in one corner of it. But then if we exclude it and say, okay, we gotta have 5.5 times the setback from that point, that pushes it even farther out of reality, or out of opportunity. While we're trying to just keep the noise level down, do we need to go that far from a larger parcel? I don't know if I'm making this clear or not. Probably complicating things.
No, I think it's a simple issue. Where do you want to measure it from? Do you want to measure it from an inhabited principal structure or the property line? If I own, say, that 100 acres and I want to divide a portion off and sell it to my son, my daughter, or whoever wants to build there, should that matter that now you put a principal inhabited structure in an area that may exceed the sound limitation under this ordinance? Because that's what will happen, or may happen, I should say.
I understand. I'm still kind of-
But I think that this is really an issue that the planning commission needs to resolve. I think either one is acceptable. The setbacks that you have now really may make this issue a moot point. In as much as you've got 5.25 times the height of the tower, I don't expect, although I don't know, that this will ever become an issue.
Well, we already know that if we leave the setbacks at 5.5 times the height of the tower from the adjacent property lines, this is going to exclude the entire farm if a person owns 100 acres. But that's not a noise issue, because the noise